Hey, you awesome people!
You are watching
Midlife
Midlife Spices.
Spices.
In this channel, we're going to be discussing anything that might interest all of you who are between 30 to 50 years old. Although we don't mind those who are younger or older, to tune in and join the discussion.
It could be anything from the dilemma of changing career, moving to another country, parenting, adult friendships, and many more.
Potato.
Right.
All right, like the next question is, yes, this is a good one. So you have returned, for quite some time, and do you have like habits that you picked up like overseas that like you couldn't get rid of like ever, and then like you're just like, that's it, I'm different from locals. Heck it, it's like what can do? Do you have that?
I'm not saying that all locals are like that, but
Yeah.
one of the best value that I still keep up until now is meant what you say and fulfill what you promise. And yeah, those two are the things that I always keep in mind. I'm not sure if I pick it up overseas or from my parents or whatever, but I think I saw a lot of it when I was in the States, when people promise something or when they, say something, most of them are fulfilled. But over here, well, it's I don't know how to say it. They promise a lot of things, they don't deliver it. It happens in quite a lot of either work or life or whatever, and then they don't feel bad about it. They just let it go, and without any guilty feeling.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I think it's cultural, and because everybody kind of like take it that way, and then everybody don't take promises seriously. So like but it's not a good thing, certainly not, because like don't promise things like if you can't deliver, right? It's like it's better that you just not say it until you can really like deliver it, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, so like for me, the habit, I have to say it's actually quite embarrassing, but like it's also to do with like, I mean, earlier I think like, I said a bit of a critical way of like how people are judgmental, right? But I have to say that like, when I was younger, before I moved out of like Asia, like I also had that part in me, and like I'm no different from like anybody else, and like I'm also like part of that culture, right? But it but once I kind of like start realizing like, oh, but it's actually not nice, and like how wonderful it is to be accepted, and not be judged when you are obviously different from your environment. Let's say, when I first went to the West, like for my studies, I was still a teenager. And like say in United States, that's the very, very first time that I left Indonesia at age 15. And it's like when I get the treatment that is like people are forgiving for who I am, and like the kind of mistakes that I make, or like how different I am, or how different my culture is. It feels actually really nice, right? And it's kind of like, oh gosh, like, okay, so that's what it feels like, and I should actually adopt that because it's nice, right? And I kind of like thought, well, back home people will be like bashing that like crazy, but it's actually not a very good culture. So when I come to such realization, I gotta kind of like make a decision for myself to say, okay, this is like the darker side of like the Asian culture, and I can choose to hold on to it and say, no, I'm Asian, I like it. Or I can say, no, it's not a very good habit, like let's leave that and change it to something else. So like I think like for me, like that is like one part that like I picked up and I'm quite proud of, is that I am tolerant to like a lot of types of people. Um, even people who have very, very completely different, like, moral grounds, or like what is right or wrong, or because that's what, their value is. I can still agree to disagree, or somehow kind of like try to understand, or put myself in their shoes and say, you know what, if I was raised in that exact same environment, I'll probably feel the same. So no judgments. So I think I was able to like to be a little less judgmental, I think, than a lot of people, like, who spend their entire life in Asia, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that actually is applicable for those who are exposed
Mm.
to more culture. So
Mm.
I wouldn't say it's exactly because we lived abroad, because
Mm.
I used to live in this city, Indianapolis, and
Mm.
I worked as a
Mm.
bridge engineer,
Yeah.
where I had to visit a lot of small bridges in smaller towns and I would
Mm.
say villages
Yeah.
in the province or the state. And then what happened was I actually visited some of these towns uh,
Mm.
whose people are never have never seen anyone from outside of their city. I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm sure those
Wow.
people would think the same way as
Mm.
the people that you just mentioned. They're very judgmental to us. And they'll
Yeah.
be like, who are you? You look
Actually,
different,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Right?
You're actually absolutely right. This is like actually, rather than like being an Asian thing of being judgmental, but it's more like provinciality, right? Because I
Mhm.
also see that like a lot in Europe as well, right? Like I mean, before I had an impression that like the Westerners, Americans, and the Europeans are a lot less judgmental, but that's because I've only seen the ones who are very worldly and exposed,
Yes.
or
Yes.
the urban people, right? But then like this is not necessarily true, because like, some Europeans, they spend their entire life in their little bubble of community,
Hmm.
and they behave exactly like the Asians, like quite
Yes.
judgmental of people who are different from themselves, right?
Yes.
They have
Yes.
like a preconceived stereotype, and they stick to that, and they refuse to see it other ways.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I agree
So
with you.
mm,
Being
mm,
in the U.S. during the time when
mm,
equal opportunity was like something that was very much emphasized everywhere we were.
mm-hmm.
It also stuck with me. Maybe that's also another value that I had to mention. Being
Mm,
non-judgmental and seeing everybody as equal. Because
right.
back then when I started working, it's all about equal opportunity. So
Mm,
we're gonna go to the plane, and I remember when I was on this trip from US to
yeah.
Indonesia, and I think it was one of the Asian airline. I can't remember if it was Eva Air or Singapore Airlines. I can't remember. And
Yeah.
then there's this American sitting next to me, and he saw how all of the stewardess were looking
Mm,
exactly the same, and they have the same size, and they're all as beautiful. And he
okay.
will be
Mm-hmm.
telling me something like, in America, this is gonna be
Mm.
this is definitely gonna be punished. Why? It's not equal opportunity. And I was like,
Oh
that's
my God,
right.
right. Like the air stewardess have to be like a certain height.
Yeah.
Actually, I wonder if this is true. Like, I mean, would that be I think like you're right. I think over here, like that kind of thing will be bashed more and more, and they say like, oh, they're discriminating against people who are not like, tall and beautiful and skinny or something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, whereas it's got nothing to do with like your ability to serve as a
Yeah.
flight attendant, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, um, but then at the same time, you kind of think that whole stewardess industry was like created in the first place to create that kind of glamour, right? You're like being served
Yeah.
by people who look like models, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's actually kind of a funny thing, right? It's a funny thing. I think this is happening all over the world. It's like equal opportunity is becoming like a more and more bigger thing, but like sometimes it goes to a direction where you're like, wait a minute, but it defeats the whole purpose, like. But oh well, yeah. I
yeah.
don't know, like Yeah, I wonder like what the audience think about it, guys. By the way, like anything that you thought of like when you're watching us, please like comment below, right? Like
Yeah.
let us know your opinions because we want to know because it'll be interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it's very different anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
I'm sure these people are coming from all over the world, so we want to
Yeah.
hear from you what's happening in your country.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Oh, that was funny.
Um,
So
okay, the next one,
yeah.
we're gonna talk about the
Mm.
food. So,
Oh, the food.
Vivian,
Yeah.
yeah, I think for
Mm.
you being overseas more than in Indonesia, I'm
Mm.
gonna ask you which food do you miss the most?
Yes, okay. Of course, it's the authentic food, the authentic Indonesian food because yes, there are like Indonesian restaurants here, but like most of them are kind of like going towards Indonesian and fusion.
Yeah,
And the reason is I think it's because it's some ingredients are extremely difficult to find. So and maybe another reason is they need to adapt it slightly to like the local taste
you
or
have
else
to.
like they
Yeah.
will they will have to have like a very small niche of like people who actually enjoy it. But
Mhm.
recently there's an Indonesian guy called Pino who opened a warung or like a small like a food stall in
Oh,
Camden
okay.
Town, in Camden
Oh,
Market, right? And
I think I actually, when I visited you last time, I saw that. I really
you
saw,
did see it?
yes.
Oh my God. And
Was
I
he,
didn't even know it.
he wasn't
Yeah,
Indonesian, right?
he's Indonesian.
He was? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The food stall that I
I
saw
think there
was,
are.
huh?
Hmm. Do they do rendang? Because like there are like other food stalls, Indonesian food stall too, but it's not Pino.
Oh, okay. But maybe it was different because I think it was
Yeah.
owned by a British guy.
Oh, okay. No, no. Pino is totally Indonesian. He's like
Okay.
from Bogor, I think.
Okay.
And he does completely authentic everything. What I like is like he doesn't cheat on the ingredients. Like
Okay.
everything is like exactly as it is in Indonesia. The sate,
Okay.
the
Wow.
baso, the tempe mendoan, it's like,
Mm.
and he also does gado-gado,
Wow.
jackfruit curry and rendang. I have to say, okay, the rendang is not exactly like the Padang rendang that you get in Indonesia, but it's like it's pretty good. But
Okay.
everything is like quite he doesn't cheat on the ingredients.
Okay.
I think like some of the worst cheats that I come across is like, for example, when you're supposed to use goat meat, right? And they
Mhm.
use mutton over here, and I say it's not the same. I know it's like a similar animal, but it doesn't taste the same, right? No,
Yeah,
that
well,
kind of thing. Yeah.
60%. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So yeah,
original, yeah.
it's it's like I think like generally speaking, like London have a lot of like Asian food too, and like generally speaking, I don't feel as deprived because I can find like when I crave something, like I can just kind of find something similar or close enough to it.
Mm-hmm.
But like of course, like when you have tasted the food from that country, like it will never compare
No, not
or
at all.
or like the highest, the most delicious of that country's dish, it's probably a lot harder to find anyways,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah.
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 I was wondering how
um
did the Tino guy
mm,
do? Was the restaurant
the Pinot
popular?
pie.
Was
Yeah.
there a lot of
um
British
he
customers?
hasn't opened his, actually mostly Indonesians. There are
Mhm.
some like non-Indonesians who go there too, but like whenever I visit his stall, there's always like a few Indonesians there. It's like I think he already made a good reputation for among Indonesians here, that
Okay.
like, well, he serves authentic, so like everybody goes there. And he
Mm-hmm.
also does like cakes and that kind of stuff too, so you can pre-order and pick it up from there. So he's
Okay.
got like a really good niche business.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't think like they're really kind of like popular yet with the non-Indonesians, or they probably don't know the difference between authentic and not. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I think he's doing a good thing, and he distinguished himself from the rest of the other Indonesian food.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, because
yeah,
because
which I think is great.
the dish that you mentioned earlier, they're all hardcore Indonesian. So I was wondering if
Yep.
the local Londoner Londoner will actually accept
No,
the taste.
they don't really know it. That's the thing. Like, I think Indonesian food awareness is still low over here, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for him. If he managed to kind of like promote it enough, he will be the first one to serve like a totally authentic one,
Okay.
probably. I'm sure there are other people too, but like, it's like he's well positioned in Camden Town. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good market. There's a
Yeah,
lot of choice.
I think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
How about you? Do you miss anything from the West that you can't get in Indonesia?
As you could tell from your last trip
Mm,
here, there have been quite a lot of international restaurants being open here, and
mm, mm.
compared to when I in the 90s when I still
Yeah.
lived in Indonesia, and then when I returned, and now the
Yeah.
quality is getting better and better, and they're more and
Mm,
more authentic compared to the
yep.
country, compared to dish from the original country. But
Yep.
one thing that I miss the most being living in the States for quite some times was good Mexican food, because somehow Mexican food, yeah, don't
Ah.
really get popular very much here. So
Mm,
yeah, Mexican food is one of the food that I really miss in Indonesia.
yeah. Oh, I see. I see. Did you
Yeah.
like try to make it yourself? Like, or can you even get the ingredients?
Yeah, all the ingredients are pretty
Mm,
easy, but of course, things like taco and
mm,
burrito skin, we still
mm.
have to buy, and most of them are frozen, so that's the only thing that makes it,
Oh yeah, you can't get it like fresh. Yeah, of
no,
course,
no.
of course.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
see. I see. Yeah. Well, when I was in Jakarta, like the thing that I missed the most from the West was like probably the variety of cheese.
Oh,
That is
okay.
one thing we don't get, I think. I mean, Indonesians make milk, but like the culture of making cheese, I think like that's a difficult one to reproduce in Asia, I think, because I lived in Beijing for 1 year as well, and I
Hmm.
had the same problem. You can't find cheese. Like you can find
Oh.
like the most basic of craft cheese in the supermarket, but like I said, you don't get camembert, you don't get parmesan, you don't get, like all these fancy things. Whereas
Hmm.
if you live here, especially nowadays in London, like you can find even like really cool like Italian cheeses, right? Like scamozza and fresh buffalo mozzarella and that kind of things, right?
Hmm.
That in Asia is such a rarity, I think.
Yeah, very difficult. You might get
Mm.
the basic like mozzarella or goat
Yeah,
cheese,
exactly.
but not
Yeah.
the type that you just mentioned. Is very difficult.
Yeah, exactly that. That and wine, I think.
Okay. Wine, actually, you
Mm.
can still get some good ones, but probably not as good as the one over there. But
Mm.
okay.
Yeah. Hmm. All right. Yeah.
The
So
next.
yeah. Next question. So yep, tricky one, and probably like a lot of our audience would like to know too.
Mhm.
In your opinion, right? Like, is there an optimal age to change country? As like, is there such thing as like too old to move? Like you already settled down.
Okay. Yes, it's quite tricky, but
Mm,
I would say
mm,
it's gonna be the same in uh, all all our lives. I mean, not only in the sense of moving countries, but also in
mm,
our life. It
mm-hmm,
will be a lot more difficult
mm,
for us to change our habit once we reach uh, 30 or above.
mm,
I think it's going to be because our behavior, our habit, our way of thinking would be pretty much well more well shaped at that
mm,
age. So beyond 30, it will be more difficult. Beyond 40 is even more difficult. So I would say
mm.
yes, because our tolerance towards change will be getting less and less as we age. What
You
do you
think
think?
so, huh? Yeah. Me,
Yeah.
I tend to have a different view from that.
Okay.
It's like, because you asked me before, right? Like, would I take an opportunity to like go back to, Jakarta if there is an opportunity? For me, like, yeah, like I don't have like at all a resistance. I'm 43 right now, but I have zero resistance to kind of like moving to another country. And if you say like, how about like, would you move to Cairo, in Egypt? Well, yeah, if there's a good opportunity, and like, I will of course like do a bit of research into what it's like to live in Cairo, and like make, the pro and con kind of like, weighing again, and say, you know what, if there's more advantage than disadvantage, I'll totally move, and
Okay.
I don't know if I'll ever change my mind, like, the older I get, but probably it's also personality. Like, I think that I will continue to be this way, and probably because I moved countries so many times in my life, like already six
Yeah.
different countries I lived in. And there's no apprehension whatsoever on my side. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I
So
just I just think
there's
that
no
like
issue limit.
anywhere I go, but it's also the fact that I'm already married, and like, if I go with my husband, like I have no resistance at all, even more so, like, because we'll be exploring it together as a family, and it'll be fun, in my opinion. But anyway, that's just me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I,
So yeah, I think like for the people listening in, it's like, I think it depends on your personality. But if you feel like, oh man, do I have to, then that means like you're the type who needs to like think more like about, changing country. But if you're
Mhm.
still a young person and you're not sure of yourself, um probably it's something that like you gotta ask yourself, like, are you a more happy-go-lucky adaptable person, or like you want to kind of like, decide and, say, okay, in the next, I don't know, 3 years or 5 years or whatever, I have to
Yeah,
decide
yeah,
where I'm gonna be. Yeah. There's
yeah.
a merit and demerit. Yeah,
I
I
guess
think.
it really depends on your preference, your personality, like you said. And
Mm,
of course, some people actually see it as an opportunity to learn something new, and they tend to
mm,
move around a lot rather than staying at one place.
yep.
Uh, yeah.
Mm,
So, and again, if you have any
mm,
other opinion, please go ahead and write it down on the comment below. What do you think?
mm,
How do you feel about moving
mm,
around?
yep. And
Okay.
we have one more question, I
One
think.
more question. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Should I go for it?
So, sure.
All right. So, okay. So, Francisca, this is like an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have an identity crisis, because you're exposed to like, so many other cultures, and you feel like, who am I, or something? Do you ever get that kind of feeling?
I'm gonna say
Mm.
sometimes. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like we always discussed earlier, we always want to adapt and we always want to be accepted by people. So we always
Mm.
try to walk their way, to talk their way, and to move their way. But
Yeah.
sometimes, deep inside, I feel like I don't, I'm not being myself, and
Mm.
I don't belong,
Mm.
being in the Western country. So
Mm.
for me, I would say sometimes, but not all
Mm.
the time. And what about you?
Um, this identity crisis, yeah, I'm not so sure if it's like a crisis per se, but like
Mhm.
it's sort of like, I have decided like what my identity is, and yes, I think like I wasn't so sure who I am before, right? Like the younger I am, the more I was confused. For example, like when I was still living in Japan as a 5-year-old or something, and my parents just got curious and asked like, so what are you? What's your, what country are you from? Like, what would you say?
Mm.
And I would confidently say, I am Japanese. And they say, then you're not our kid, and I'm like, what do
Oh
you mean,
yeah.
right? So, yeah, they're like, since when do we
Okay.
have Japanese kid in the house, and they will say, you're Indonesian, really? But we've never lived in Indonesia, kind of thing, right? So it was pretty confusing. And
Uh-huh.
also, like when we moved from Japan to Indonesia for the first time, like my entire family, And I got another culture shock where other kids will, say she's Japanese, even though I was told like I'm Indonesian and I just returned. But like, they say, oh, they're Japanese, right? So it does create quite a bit of confusion, and it's kind of like, and then you're being asked like, where does your loyalty lies? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, one thing that I kind of like realize more and more is that like, there's a certain Indonesian propaganda to kind of try to instill that nationalism in you. And they're trying to be like, oh, proud to be Indonesian, only use Indonesian product, support Indonesia, blah blah, right? And but at this particular moment in my life, after moving to so many different countries and absorbing so many different cultures, I feel like more an international person. And also I just kind of like feel like, at the end of the day, like I find that, you know people from any country feel like their country is the best, or they try to like make a point that their race or their country is the best. And I always see it as like, yeah, but like when I go to Japan, like all the Japanese people feel that way. When I go to Indonesia, all the Indonesians feel that way. And it's kind of like, and frankly, I just say, not really, you're just like people with different habits. And
Mm-hmm.
it makes me kind of say, then how about me? What am I most proud of being? I say I'm not proud of being a part of any of it. It's like, it doesn't mean that I don't love all those countries, that every single country that I have lived in and set foot in and like, get to know, I have some kind of feeling of like love for.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that I am exclusively proud to be a person from that land. I don't. you know
Mm-hmm.
just because I have been labeled so many things in my life, just because of the perception of those people there. And it feels like, um kind of like, at the end of the day, but this is just my personal opinion,
Mm-hmm.
or like my how I feel, that nationalism can be quite like, sort
Misleading.
of like misleading, and also unhealthy for humanity in general. you know because like what it means to be nationalistic is to be tribal, meaning there's you and there's me, there's us and there's them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start separating yourself like that, it's like you're creating a barrier and say like, which team do you belong to, even though we're all like, living in the same world. And who decides who is Indonesian, who's Japanese, who is British, or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So like in that regard, like, I am now very clear about like what my identity is. Like, I am definitely an international person who, it's like I don't have a bias of like, if I have to choose between like, who do you support, Indonesia or Japan, it will be more like, okay, who gives me more money, that's the one that I support. Right? It's like I don't it's kind
Yeah,
of like,
yeah,
oh man, it's like, the Indonesian government, like, they will hate me for saying this, but like, I mean, but honestly, like, if you have lived in many places, you might feel that way too, but not everyone. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question, but hey, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And especially
Yeah.
it's interesting how you
Mm.
from the younger age you've been moving around a lot, and then you
Mm.
yourself have this question to yourself, who am
Mm.
I, right? What am I? What's the nationality and am I? And even your parents ask you about it. It is something
Yeah.
interesting. I think this kind of thing is also going to be experienced by those with so many mixed marriages in the world. And,
Yeah.
these people are asked all the time, even until now, I'm sure.
Yep.
Are you American? Are you not American? Are you black? Are you white? Are you Asian? This kind of thing
True.
that yeah, being asked all the time.
Yeah, like my kids are definitely gonna like go through that, because they'll be like half Italian, half Indonesian, Chinese Indonesian, and then like also, but they'll be like born and raised in UK, so it's like we'll be, a mix of a lot of things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I guess if I have to advise everyone in the world,
Yeah.
They have to experience other culture at least once in their life in order for them to see the world in a better way, right? Because we've seen
Completely agree with you.
yes, we've seen so many
Yes.
people that never traveled, like I mentioned earlier, these small towns
Mm.
whose people
Mm.
would look at me from head to toe, looking at me like I'm from Mars or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. It will
So,
open your horizon, and like I think it will enrich your life, and to me it's always better to know than to be ignorant.
yes, absolutely.
It's always better to know the truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think like we can wrap it up, and like, hey, thanks guys for listening to our
Thank you.
conversation, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe and write your comments.
Thank you.
See you
And see you on at the next episode.